Go live. Greetings, beautiful people. We are going live for another beautiful reading of the Charles Eisenstein book, The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible. If this is the first video that you've jumped on board, I just want to say a few things. One is that thank you to all my Patreon supporters. I've recently put the Simon on the Sofa onto Patreon. For any of you out there, if you don't know that, it's a way of, in a sort of a gift economy way, that people can support if they choose to, with small contributions, financial contributions, so that I can continue reading and recording transformational, transparent conversations. And the links are below this video, patreon.com, which is patreon.com/Simon on the Sofa. And because people listen to this on audio, so the people that are listening on audio, I'd like to speak to you and just say thank you for downloading and listening on audio. And if this is the first time you've come, then this is now chapter 9. So please go back and listen to the other chapters, or underneath this video is the link to the book online. And Charles Eisenstein, if you don't know him, go and explore his work, along with many other magical people who are all writing the new narrative of our time. The more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. Whether it be Polly Higgins, who's talking about daring to be great and being a part of this, or Joanna Macy, or anybody out there, all of us, Jeff Brown, everybody who is actually taking a stand at what we see as the suffering and working towards the transformation of our wounds into more and more beauty. So, chapter 9, yes. This chapter is called Despair. I wanted to just play these briefly. Just take a deep breath. This is for Donna, who loves listening to these, and Muktali. Let us begin. Evil is a talented logic which challenges love and truth by arguing that since all human beings are by nature selfish and fallible, any pursuit of virtue must be hypocrisy. That's the quote that begins the chapter by Robert Graves. While many people understand that the solution to climate change involves more than a disembedded choice of alternative technologies, few would say that those dedicating their lives to marriage equality for gay people, compassion to the homeless, or care for the autistic are doing something essential for the survival of our species. But that is only because our understanding of interbeing is still shallow. I would like to suggest that anything that violates or disrupts the story of separation will heal any and all of the consequences of that story. This includes even the tiny, invisible actions that our rational mind, steeped in the logic of separation, says cannot possibly make a difference. It includes the kinds of actions that get squeezed out by the big crusades to save the world. I spoke recently with Kalle Lasson, the founder of the radical magazine Adbusters, and the man who has devoted his entire life to promoting and practicing hands-on activism. He told me that for some time now, he hasn't been spending much time on politics or the magazine because he is taking care of his 95-year-old mother-in-law. He said, taking care of her is far more important to me than all my other work put together. Kale agreed with me when I said, Our worldview must accommodate the truth and importance of this. My dear reader, can you countenance a reality in which to save the planet, we have to neglect our 95-year-old mother-in-law? There must be a place in our understanding of how the universe works for the intimate, uncalculated acts of service that are such a beautiful part of our humanity. Is Kale to trust his feeling that in taking care of this old woman he is doing something significant? Do you not know in your bones that any belief system that denies that significance must be part of the problem? Can you bear to live in a world in which what he is doing doesn't matter? See, we only keep performing the tasks that keep the world devouring machine running by quelling that feeling of significance. We steel ourselves to do what some abstract reasoning tells us we must do in the interests of practicality. Occasionally, this practicality means what will help heal the ecosystem, bring about social justice, and enable the survival of our species. But for most people, most of the time, practicality involves money or other means of security and comfort. And money in our current system generally comes through our participation in the conversion of nature into products, communities into markets, citizens into consumers, and relationships into services. If your heart isn't in all of that, you will find that practicality often contradicts the urging of the heart. The problem goes much deeper, as always, than a selfish view of what is practical. It goes to the understanding of cause and effect that underlies it. The urging of the heart might not only contradict the dictates of money, it might contradict instrumentalist logic altogether. Now, that is not to say that we should ignore the mind's logic when attempting to make practical changes in the world, any more than we should abandon technology, literature, or any other fruits of the millennia-long journey of separation. The tools of control, the application of force and reason surely have their place. Humanity is not nature's exception. As with all species, our gifts can uniquely contribute to the well-being and development of the whole. We have yet to use our gifts in this spirit. Instead, we have used them to dominate and conquer, weakening the health of Gaia, Gaia meaning Mother Earth, and all her beings, and therefore weakening ourselves as well. Now we have the chance to transform our uniquely human gifts from tools of mastery to tools of service. Specifically, when are the methods of practicality appropriate? ? Quite simply, they are appropriate when we know how to do something from within our current understanding of causality. And if your stove is on fire and you have a fire extinguisher, then of course you use the fire extinguisher, right? You don't ignore it and pray for a miracle instead. But by the same token, if your house is a roaring inferno and all you have is a puny fire extinguisher that you know is far insufficient to the task, you shouldn't just wave it in front of the flames in a posture of heroism. The latter situation is a good description of our current predicament in life. Yes, it is true our house is on fire. What the environmental alarmists are saying is true. I'm not using alarmist as a term of disparagement. If anything, the situation is worse than they, fearing alarmist label, tell us publicly. But what should we do about it? Or more to the point, what should you do about it? What, according to the conventional notions of causality that nearly everyone in modern society has deeply internalized, can you do that is practical? Nothing. Nada. No thing. Therefore, we must learn to follow another kind of guidance, one that leads to an expanded realm of what is possible. What we can do. You may think it's dangerous to sow despair, even if what I say is true. But the despair is there whether I sow it or not. Every activist I have asked confirms that they have at one time or another confronted precisely the despair that I am evoking. We try to obscure it with reasoning like, sure, it makes no difference if you're the only one making changes, but if everyone does it, then the world will change. True. But is it in your power to make everyone do it? No. What you do would matter if everyone did it. By the same token, since everyone isn't doing it, what you do doesn't matter. I have never found an escape from this logic within its own terms. It is a sound. It is a sound as it premises the separate self in an objective world. Worse yet, some would say that our individual efforts to buy local or recycle or ride bicycles are even counterproductive, giving us a false complacency, depotentiating more effective revolutionary acts and enabling the larger mechanisms of ruin to trundle forward. As Derek Jensen says, don't take shorter showers. I think it's better not to obscure the despair, because real hope lies only on its other side. Despair is part of the territory we must traverse. Until we reach the other side, despair weighs on our hearts as we soldier on, never fully believing we are doing much good. Eventually, however strong our spirits, our efforts waver, our energy flags, and we give up. Perhaps for a while, personal vanity can keep us going as we uphold a self-image of being ethical, conscious, and a part of the solution. But that motivation is insufficiently deep to bring us to the courage, commitment, and true faith we need. True optimism comes from having traversed the territory of despair and taken its measure. It is not ignorant of the magnitude of the crisis, nor unaware of the forces that stand in the path of healing. Sometimes people confront me at talks to educate me about the power elite and their propaganda machine, their control of finance and politics, or even their mind control technologies, imagining I am unaware or willfully ignorant of the workings of our current system. Or they speak of the apathy of the masses, the greed and the ignorance of the people who just don't get it, and the unlikelihood of their ever changing. All of this is part of the territory of despair, with which I am intimately familiar. It isn't that I have shied away from the bleak truth because I can't take it. Optimism lies on the other side of it, and hope is its herald. Beautiful. Just want to throw a few words in there on that, because, you know, to really see despair as a way of being, as a way that we've started to act and function from. You know, it's like often I speak about the way we live in our pain, the emotional pain and the pain body, and the way that we function and the way that we build and the way that we communicate and the way that we relate and connect and the way that we disregard people comes from that emotional pain. So what Charles is pointing to here is how from that despair, how we're acting in that despair. This is really important. And it's the same as when you go back to what he spoke about in the chapter before with climate change. It's like we've really got to look deeper at what's underlining the narrative of how we're acting. So if we can see that we're acting from despair, how we, like he said, we can shift that and then step into that optimism, step into that new story. Because the old story of separation, even if you look at it from different places, you might call it the patriarchal story, you know, the male dominated story, you know, however far you go back, however you look at humanity, is to really look at the structures and the way that we interact and engage and co-create reality that we're all doing anyway. So let me continue. True optimism comes from having traversed the territory. Sorry, boom. On its own terms, the logic of despair is unassailable. It encompasses more than just the hopelessness of the state of the planet, though. It is also woven into our defining mythos, which casts us into an alien universe of force and mass. It is this mythos that at once renders us alone in the universe and at the same time powerless to significantly change it, or to change it all, given that those same forces determine our actions too. Perhaps this is why the emotional energy behind the case for hopelessness I just described is identical to that behind rejections of alternative scientific paradigms. Readers of my earlier books will forgive me for requoting this passage from A Free Man's Worship by Bertrand Russell, one of the great minds of the modern era. So here we are with what Bertrand says. That man is the product of causes which had no provision of the end that they were achieving. That his origin, his growth, his hopes and fears, his loves and his beliefs are but the outcome of accidental collocations of atoms. That no fire, no heroism, no intensity of thought and feeling can preserve an individual life beyond the grave. That all the labors of the ages, all the devotion, all the inspiration, all the no-one-day brightness of human genius are destined to extinction in the vast depth of the solar system, and that the whole temple of man's achievement must inevitably be buried beneath the debris of a universe in ruins. All these things, if not quite beyond dispute, are yet so nearly certain that no philosophy which rejects them can hope to stand. Only within the scaffolding of these truths, only on the firm foundation of unyielding despair, can the soul's habitation henceforth be safely built. Beautiful. This final paragraph from Charles. As I have hinted, the story on which Russell bases his conclusions is no longer so certain. A philosophy that rejects them can indeed hope to stand on the foundation of the quantum interconnectedness and indeterminacy, the tendency of non-linear systems toward spontaneous organization and autopoiesis. Charles has got me on those two words. The capacity of organisms and environments to purposely restructure DNA. So I'm going to read that again. A philosophy that rejects them can indeed hope to stand on the foundation of the quantum interconnectedness, that indeterminacy, the tendency of nonlinear systems towards spontaneous organization and autopoiesis, the capacity of organisms and environments to purposely restructure DNA, and the proliferation of scientific anomalies that promise further paradigm shifts to come. Without attempting to make a rigorous philosophical case for it, I would observe that all these scientific revolutions lend themselves, at least metaphorically, to a very different story of the world. Ooh-wee. I hope that didn't hurt your ears. Yeah, that last bit there, I don't know what that word means, but I think that he describes it in just this idea of what is possible, what's the potential of that shift, where are we really shifting? And you'll be happy to know that the next chapter is called Hope. And so as I leave you in despair, or in the exploration of despair, I hope you enjoyed that chapter, that on the other side of despair, there is hope, and that human beings are resilient, and that throughout the ages, however long we've been alive, Of course, at some point our species will become extinct. But right now, as we really re-educate ourselves, reprogram ourselves, reintegrate ourselves, you could say, to what it means to be human, it's through that awareness, through that new education, that we do literally reprogram our cellular membrane. Our DNA changes. That's happened to me over the last 7 years and continues to do so. I doubt it's ever going to stop. And it's available to everybody. I'm no different than anybody else. Charles is standing on the shoulders of others. Everyone's standing on the shoulders of others, trying to work out what it is that we want to be, do, and create. So wherever you are in the world, sending you love. Hope you're enjoying these chapters. Please share, check out the other chapters. And yeah, it's an interesting time to be alive, a magical time. Maybe everybody that ever existed said that. But I tell you something, this internet, this information age in the last 15 years has really cracked open multi-dimensions of possibility. You know, we're accessing ways of living and being now like never before. Love to you all.